Well, guys, this is lesson 14-2, which again is working with patterns and our rules that go with those patterns. So let's look at number 1. It says the rule for this table is multiply by 4. What number does not belong? So remember with our rules, what that means is to get from one column to the next, something happens. So this is always multiplying by 4. So 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. So this last one is probably one that doesn't belong. 4 times 4 is not 15. It should be 16. So the number that does not belong is 15. Let's check number 2 now. Complete the table. Describe a feature of the pattern. So describe something you notice. Our rule is divide by 4. So how do we get from one to the next? Well, how do we get from top to bottom is we divide by 4. Notice if you're not the best at multiplying or dividing, you can always do the opposite if you're a little bit better. So we could also switch the rule and say the bottom to the top is times 4. But we're going to stick with what they gave us. This is divide by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So what feature pattern do we notice? Well, the number of cars is a factor of the total number of pairs for each number pair. So the number of cars is a factor of the number of wheels. That makes sense because remember how we talked about how we could always do the opposite? Well, this is showing 2 times something, 3 times something. So all of those are factors for the total number of wheels. A feature you could have also put as well, if it was easier, is you could say, you notice it goes up by 1, 2, 3, 4. We're increasing by 1. It's increasing by 4. You could have put that. You could have put they're all evens for the total number of wheels. There's many other answers we could have put. Number 3, use the rule to complete the table. Describe a feature of each pattern. So what do we have here? Well, it's times 8. So how to get to top from the bottom? That's times 8. Times 8 is 16. Times 8. Times 8. Times 8. 5 times 8 is 40. Our next one, divide by 5. So how do we get from left to right? We divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. Now, if this is all you have, you're actually going to get it wrong because remember, it's asking us to describe a feature. So let's do that with 3 and 4 that we skipped over. What feature or pattern do we notice? Well, the number of fingers has 5 or 0 in the ones place. So we can say the number of fingers is divisible by 5. We could also put it has a 0 or a 5 in the ones place. Let's look at this one. Well, what feature pattern do we notice here? The number of legs and we could put is a multiple of 8. We could put is always even. So remember, there's many different things we can put for these. Number 5, multiply by 16. 1 times 16 is 16. 2 times 16 is 32. 3 times 16 is 48. 4 times 16 is 64. And then what feature do we notice in this pattern? Well, I noticed that the number of books is a factor of the weight. So notice this top part right here, they're all factors, they're all things we can multiply to get our weight. Now let's head to our next one. Our rule is divide by 2. So how do we get from 12 to 6? We divided by 2. How do we get from 14 to 7? We divided by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So what do we notice? Well, again, there's several things. What I'm going to put this time is the numbers go. So the number of pairs goes even, odd, even, odd. Let's head to our back page now. Here we go. The table shows how much money Joe makes babysitting. How much money will Joe make when he babysits for 6 hours? So what's nice is, again, they're giving us the rule. They're saying our rule is we multiply by 7 times 7 times 7. So 6 times 7 equals what? 6 times 7 is 42. So he's going to make $42 if he babysits for that long. So our next question, the table shows the total number of pounds of potatoes for different numbers of eggs. How many bags does it take to hold 96 pounds of potatoes? So our rule is we divide by 8. So we start on the left, divide by 8. Start on the left, divide by 8. 88 divided by 8 is 11. 96 divided by 8 is 12. Now notice, I didn't actually have to do this divided by 8 and figure out that it's going to be 12. And why is that? Well, it's kind of the whole purpose of these patterns. If we notice there's a pattern in here, it's going to save us some time by doing the math, because we notice our pattern is always the same. We're increasing by 8 each time, and over here we're increasing by 1 each time. So we can also notice that is our pattern. Okay, let's head to our next one. Number 9. What is the greatest number you can make using each of the digits 1, 2, 3, 4 different digits? Well, that means it's going to be a 4-digit number, so we're in our thousands place. And if we want our biggest number, we should have the largest number in the thousands place value. We should then have the next largest number in the hundreds place value, since the next biggest. We should then have, whoa, I jumped all the way to the top. We should then have the next largest number, which is this one, in the tens. So we always want that biggest number in the biggest place value. So our largest number is 7,610. Now off to number 10. A penguin, I love penguins, can swim 11 miles per hour. So let's highlight that. And actually, I'm going to do a different color. At this speed, how far can it swim in 13 hours? Use S as a variable. Write and solve an equation. So what do we have? Well, we have it can swim 11 miles per hour, and we're going to have 13 groups. So 11 and 13 groups, 13 hours. And that's going to equal S for swim. So now what do we have? Well, now we need to solve. What does S equal? So S equals, and now we need to do 13 times 11. This is going to be 13. Then we go to the tens place value, add them up. So how far? The penguin can swim 143 miles, which is incredibly long. Now, let's check our last remaining bits. We only have 3 more. For number 11 and 12, use the rule, multiply by 3. So how do we get from left to the right? We times 3. Left to the right, times 3. 3 times 3 equals 9. Using the rule, how many batteries do 8 flashlights need? So if we have 8 down here, what would this number be? Well, that's 8 times 3 is 24. So 8 flashlights is 8 times 3 equals 24 batteries. And then what about the next one? Well, if we had 10 here, 10 times 3 equals 30. So 10 flashlights, and I'm going to use those little quotes so it's the same thing, copying directly above, is 10 times 3 equals 30 batteries. Now our next one. How many more batteries do 6 flashlights need than 4 flashlights? Explain. Well, to clean this up, I'm just going to erase over here. And it's asking for 6. Oops, let's highlight that. 6 and 4. So 6 flashlights would be what? 6 times 3 equals 18 batteries. And then 4 times 3 equals 12 batteries. But that's not what it's asking for. It's saying how many more. So if you have 18 batteries and 12 batteries, how many more do you have? Well, it's 6 more batteries. But again, we're not done because of that part explain. So we just need to show how we got that 6 more batteries. So we're going to put 18 minus 12 equals 6. Now our last one, number 13. There are 6 rolls in each package. Use the rule divide by 6 to show the relationship between the number of rolls and the number of packages. So from top to the bottom, we divide by 6. Top to bottom, we divide by 6. Top to bottom, we divide by 6. Use each digit from the box once to complete the table. Well, here we could do 522 divided by 6, but there's an easier way. It goes back to recognize that pattern. Notice here I'm increasing by 6 each time. And down here, I'm increasing by 1 each time. It's that same thing, plus 6, plus 1 on the bottom. So here, plus 1 would be what? Well, that would be 90. And look, we have a 9 here and a 0 here. Then we have what over here? Plus 1. 90 plus 1 is 91. Plus 1. 91 plus 1 is 92. So what do we have over here? Well, here we need to figure out what plus 1 equals 88, or we could do subtraction since we're going the opposite direction. 88 minus 1 is 87. Good job, you guys. That is it.